This video will go over the 8 unique characteristics of writing an INTJ character. And it's the first of a 2 or maybe 3-part series. This first video is what makes an INTJ character uniquely an INTJ. And the following video or 2 will provide examples of different type of INTJs portrayed in modern day media. Because just like the chocolate candy M&Ms, INTJs comes in different shapes, sizes, and flavors. I personally like to think that I'm pumpkin spice flavored because I'm a basic bitch. And honestly guys, I do like the flavor and I look forward to it every year. A few things to align on before this video begins. Some of these characteristics might overlap with other MBTI types, but it's the way in which the INTJ approach these characteristics that makes it uniquely INTJ. Because any person can cherry pick a line and say, look, this person said this, so this person must be an INTJ, while ignoring the context in what was said and why it was said. You have to look at the whole picture. INTJ characters should never be taken for face value because there's usually a goal that we're working towards that most people are unaware of. It doesn't even have to be a goal, it could just be anything else. Also, keep in mind that an INTJ character doesn't have to display all 8 characteristics, but it should be a red flag that warrants questioning if the INTJ character goes against any of the 8 listed. A younger INTJ will probably only demonstrate a third of what's listed, but a seasoned INTJ might exhibit all characteristics. It's important to define these characteristics because INTJs are commonly mistaken for ENTJs, ENFJs, INTPs, ISTJs, and INFJs. I personally will never claim Gandalf in Lord of the Rings or Snape in the Harry Potter series as an INTJ, and if you feel otherwise, then fight me. I'm going to use cognitive functions to explain my reasoning. And if you're unfamiliar with cognitive functions, here's a quick simplified cheat sheet. And honestly, if you want to learn about MBTI, you have to know cognitive functions. The following 4 terms are going to be used. NI means a long-term plan that usually stretches a few years. TE means the discipline to accomplish a task regardless of one's own feeling. FI means an internal value system that includes people, ethics, and internal beliefs. FE means the value system of tribe over self. And SE means engaging with the sensory world, engaging with reality. The reason why these terms are important is because they're the building block of MBTI. For example, INTJs and ISTJs have the same second and third cognitive function in the exact same order. So we both act very similar to people that don't personally know us. Whereas ENTJs, ENFJs, and INFJs all have NI in our first or second slot. So we're all very future focused. And lastly, INTJs are very similar to INTPs because we're both fucking nerds. Lastly, I'm going to use Mr. Bubble Butt himself, Thanos, to compare and contrast my reasoning. The MCU is one of the top grossing movie series in history, and I'm sure most of you are aware of who Thanos is, so I don't have to provide too much context so that you understand my references. And secondly, I'm annoyed that people type him as an INTJ, because he's clearly not an INTJ. So if you haven't seen any of the MCU movies yet, first, I'm glad you found a comfortable rock to live under for the past decade, because everyone heard of MCU at this point. And second, he's the main villain of the Avengers movie. The Avengers movie with Captain America and all those people. All right, let's begin. These are the characteristics that makes a character an INTJ. Number 1, an INTJ goal that has an attached FI value. Number 2, FI value that an INTJ is not willing to break. Number 3, TE actions that are accomplished independently or with a small group of people. Number 4, FE is used as a tool instead of a natural instinct. Number 5, SE is only engaged when necessary. Number 6, solutions will be approached in a unique INTJ way. Number 7, emotions are felt but rarely shown. And lastly, number 8, goals, ethics, and capabilities are continuously questioned by the INTJ. Number 1, an NI goal that has an attached FI value. Thanos has a goal of wiping half of existence, and he accomplishes it no matter what. His reason is not for any personal gain, or for the people he cares about, or any principle that he believes in. He legit just wants to be the Messiah to save all existence. And as an INTJ, the first time I heard his reasoning, the first thing that popped in my head was, why? Why is this the only option? Why are you the one to determine what's best for all of us? Why do you care so much? It doesn't sound like he thought it through properly. It would make more sense if wiping half of existence allows Thanos' people to become supreme ruler of the galaxy. It would make more sense if the goal is to instead murder people that are chasing after him, his family, or his daughters so that he can save them. It would make more sense if he wished for his people or his planet to be revived. But nope, This dude legit just wants to become a farmer after he massacres trillions of life. That's such a waste of time and not a well fleshed out plan because it doesn't inject a system to prevent the original issue from happening again. We can make an argument that all of existence is part of Thanos' FI value, but if you know an INTJ, you should know by now. We rarely care about people that aren't part of our system or people that we don't know. There has to be a hint of selfishness for an INTJ to pursue a goal or a dream, especially if it means going out of the way to do things such as traveling through space looking for shiny rocks. Thanos is inherently doing this for the good of all species. Therefore, his NI goal is led by an FE value. So his character already breaks the first guideline in this video. Number 2, FI value that an INTJ is willing to break. Characteristic number 2 is how I know for sure Thanos isn't an INTJ. In order to get the Soul Stone, he willingly sacrificed the life of his favorite daughter, and I say favorite daughter because he has another daughter that he's willing to sacrifice like it's just another Tuesday. You don't know how dumb this sounds to an INTJ. I'm not going to go over all the alternative methods that he could have followed in order to obtain the Soul Stone, such as bringing someone else to sacrifice their loved one instead of him sacrificing his own daughter. What I want to focus on is that an INTJ won't sacrifice our FI value because we know we can always find an alternative way to achieve our goal. An INTJ may talk big in front of other people and say we'll do whatever is necessary to accomplish a task, but most INTJs know how difficult it is to go against our value system. And if you're skeptical about what I'm saying right now, you should know by now that I always bring receipts. Here are a few examples of INTJs that change their entire plan because they won't go against their own FI value, even though they're one step away from achieving glory. Sasuke from the anime Naruto didn't kill Naruto to gain the Mangekyo Sharingan, even when he was told that that was the only way to obtain it. He went a different route. Yennefer from the Witcher series would never hand over Ciri no matter how many times they would do battle with the Wild Hunt. She loves that girl to death where she's willing to continuously go to battle. Katniss from the Hunger Games series could have won the tournament if she killed Peeta, but instead she found an alternative route because her FI value won't allow her to deal the killing blow. But on very rare occasions, this rule may be broken, and it's usually because it goes against another FI value that's usually held in higher regards than that FI value. An example is Michael Corleone from the Godfather series, who assassinated his older brother. He loves his older brother to death. But his brother was part of an assassination attempt on Michael's life, and Michael had to do what was necessary that was best for him and the empire that he built. FE justice is one of the most difficult things for an INTJ to understand. FE users seem psychopathic whenever they justify their actions because it's for the greater good. Because for an INTJ, there's always another route. No matter how dire the situation, FI for an INTJ is almost impossible to break, and if it breaks, there's a goddamn good reason for that. Number 3, TE actions that are accomplished independently or with a small group of people. INTJs hate inefficiencies because it's a waste of time, and we believe that playing the social game is inefficient if the outcome isn't to get closer to any of our goals. So what's the best remedy for that? Easy. Only surround yourself with highly competent people. Each person that the INTJ surrounds itself with is a master at a certain craft that will elevate the weakness of the INTJ and thus elevating the entire group as a whole. Keep in mind, this only applies when the INTJ is working towards a goal because we have a different mindset recreationally. It's difficult to say whether Thanos fits this characteristic because he doesn't get enough screen time. So let's ignore his bubble butt at this point. Instead, the best example of an INTJ that demonstrates this characteristic is Billy Butcher from the show The Boys. The Boys is a show that humanizes superheroes, where superheroes have human flaws such as drug addiction, need for validation, there's a power dynamic, and a world where superheroes can do whatever they want whenever they want. Butcher is a normal INTJ guy with no superpowers and has a small team, and his entire life purpose is to kill the Superman in his universe. He's just a normal dude, but will stop at nothing to achieve his goal. Well, almost nothing, because there are certain scenes in the show where FI gets in the way, but he always finds an alternative solution. And INTJ is aware that having too many people to rely on increases the chances of mistakes, unknown variables, and an increased need for luck. Additionally, it's very difficult for an INTJ to trust a person to fulfill a certain requirement, so the person that we end up trusting has proven himself reliable. You might be asking yourself at this moment, John, are you saying that INTJs can't be leaders because we only operate in small groups? That's a very astute observation, young one. No, that's not what I'm saying. INTJs could be great leaders, which is a great segue into the next section. Number 4, FE is used as a tool instead of a natural instinct. Contrary to popular belief, INTJs can be very sociable and extremely liked by most people. The difference between INTJs and other types is that we see being friendly or sociable as a tool to be used to accomplish a task. In an INTJ's most natural state, being social is rarely considered. And we show our love to the people that we care about through extroverted thinking, through TE. That leads to an INTJ being natural at leading, whether it's in a small group or in charge of an army. If being social or charismatic is required, then we'll do it. This rule is also common for ENTJs because ENTJs do the exact same thing. But the primary difference is that there's usually an aura of mystery with an INTJ, whereas the ENTJ is more transparent. Also, the INTJs tend to have more contingency plans than a Hollywood heist movie where the main character expects 4 different betrayals at the end of the movie. In regards to Thanos, he doesn't have enough screen time to determine whether he follows this rule or not, so yet again, we're ignoring Mr. Bubblebutt. A character that demonstrates this characteristic really well is Peter Baelish from the HBO series Game of Thrones. Peter Baelish has 2 different personas. His persona when he engages with strangers, business partners, or acquaintances, or the persona when he's alone or around people that he trusts. His objective is to be the next king, and he skillfully uses FE to gain trust from people he sees as valuable to achieving that goal. He sees people as pawns while he plays the Game of Thrones. What makes his actions specifically INTJ is because it's out of a selfish desire to be king. He wants to be king not to save people, not because he thinks he'll be the most just king, not because other people want him to be king. No. It's so much simpler than that. He just wants to be king himself because he feels like he deserves it. He's willing to sacrifice lives of millions of people that isn't part of his FI. He uses FE as a tool to accomplish his NI-FI goal. Number 5, SE is engaged with only when necessary. This characteristic is a bit tricky to display since it requires either screen time or a lot more exposition. Yes, the INTJ will engage the world just like any normal human being, but it's not our priority. It's part of the goal. Whether it's the ultimate goal or the goal of the day, the goal has to be accomplished. Ultimate goal, in this sense, means the goal that we've been working on for the past few years, something that our life has been heading towards. And the goal of the day is something as simple as buying groceries so that we don't starve at home. And trust me, starving happens more often to an INTJ than we like to admit. An INTJ sees engaging the sensory world as a means to an end, instead of something natural to do. Whether it's to fulfill our need to be social, our need to accomplish a task, the need of someone or something that we care about, or to engage something that's part of our value system that hasn't been listed. INTJs are notorious for being okay with solitude for an extended period of time, and most of the time, that's what we want. Most of the time, we just want to be left alone. We could go days without going outside, without seeing sunlight, and that's not because we're depressed. That's just normal for us. Then there's the other side of the INTJ when we lose control of the sensory world. This is when the INTJ consumes too much alcohol and start dancing on tables. And everyone's around us being like, woo! This is when the INTJ takes too much drugs and we develop an addiction because it makes us feel more human. This is when the INTJ takes a random road trip to another country because at that moment, we believe that we're going to enjoy a spontaneous trip. We usually don't. Yes, this could be said about any type out there, but the key difference that's unique to an INTJ is that regardless of what the outcome is, whether it's positive or negative, the INTJ is going to regret it afterwards. It's not because we see it as letting loose, we see it as losing control. And losing control means weakness, and INTJs hate feeling weak. This doesn't mean that the INTJ is always in a room, but instead, the key takeaway from this section is that an INTJ is outside for a reason. Going back to Thanos, he doesn't have enough screen time to determine his guideline, so we're going to continue ignoring this big purple dinosaur. Number 6, solutions will be approached in a unique INTJ way. Whether the INTJ is the main protagonist or antagonist, the INTJ will do things their own way. Most of the time, it's done in secrecy so that we don't get hindered by other people, but in INTJ, we operate at the beat of our own drums. It just doesn't make sense for us to do things that have been proven to work if we see an alternative route that might be more efficient. It also doesn't make sense for us to follow rules that are in place that hinders progress. This usually leads to an edgelord vibe for my INTJ, as if we're breaking the rules just for the sake of being an outcast. No, that is a waste of time. But instead, the INTJ sees it as just getting something out of the way. An INTJ prioritizes order over chaos. Therefore, we actually have a high level of respect towards well-crafted set of rules. So we will follow and enforce rules that we believe are necessary, but we also see rules more like guidelines that should be followed if it fits a situation. Additionally, being in trouble is not an issue for an INTJ if we know the repercussion is minimal compared to the possible gain. But we're not spontaneous because we've already considered the most likely outcome and believe that accomplishing the goal is well within our means. And that's what makes it unique to the INTJ. It's extremely difficult for us to take action if we're unaware of where we will end up. To most people, it sounds like the INTJ is just doing the first thing that pops into our head, but in actuality, it's something that we've been dwelling on for a while and finally arrived to a conclusion. Or, subconsciously, NI tells us that this is the right path and that we shouldn't worry about the consequences. So whether the answer is a yes or a no from an INTJ when you ask them to do something, or if they break a rule, it's because we've instantly performed a cost-benefit analysis using NI. And a lot of the times it happens very subconsciously. Thanos can't be considered in this section because he's the strongest person in the universe. Who's gonna tell him not to do something? He determines what he wants to do, when he wants to do it. That dude sets the rules. So let's forget about him again. Number 7, emotions are usually felt but rarely shown. The dumbest stereotype of an INTJ is that we don't have emotions. I think I've said this in over 6 different videos at this point. How do people possibly believe that INTJs are emotionless? INTJs are human, and to be human is to feel emotions. There might be a delay in us comprehending our feelings, but INTJs feel emotions just as much as anyone else. So break the stereotype. So if a character is written where they don't care about anyone besides themselves or don't stand with any value system, that's not an INTJ, ladies and gentlemen. You wrote a psychopath. INTJs have FI in our third cognitive function stack, so we feel more than we like to express, which leads to moments such as an INTJ being very overly emotional and that we end up crying. We just try our best not to do that in front of people. INTJs do cry. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens. INTJs are really straightforward people, but dealing with our emotions is when the INTJ becomes the most shy. And when I say dealing with emotions, that doesn't mean the INTJ stating how we're feeling, but when the INTJ actually takes a moment to feel and acknowledge the emotions. That's something we typically do in private because it feels like a weakness. And again, INTJs don't like feeling weak. I want to emphasize that feeling our emotions is different from stating our emotions because it's easy for us to use logic to state our emotions. Oh, okay, I feel this. Oh, I feel this. The difficult part is actually engaging with the feeling. That's the part that the INTJ doesn't feel comfortable with. When it comes down to romance, we try to play it cool and ignore it like the plague. But similar to any healthy human being, we do enjoy romance. Then there's the other two sides of INTJs when we talk about emotions. On one side, an INTJ can feel like we're being emotionally expressive and people still can't see it in our face because we're not expressive enough or something. And on the other side, even when we feel our emotions, we tend not to express it because it doesn't matter in the context of the situation. An INTJ could be annoyed and not show it because we're aware that it will just cause more drama that we want to deal with. So it's easier just to internalize it. Number 8. Goals, ethics, and capabilities are continuously questioned. The final characteristic is that the INTJ fluctuates between feeling like the most capable and intelligent person to the dumbest person alive. Because we're so self-aware of our capabilities, it leads to us questioning ourselves way more than other people questioning us, and we don't show that to people unless we trust them. So if a character is written where they're always sure about what they're working towards, that what they're doing or their ethics and everything is correct over a long period of time, that's not very INTJ-like because our knowledge of the situation or our value system is constantly changing with new information. Thanos doesn't question whether his goal of wiping half of existence is correct, and that's just blind ignorance. You're telling me that after all the planets he conquered, all the different species he met along the way, and all the times he had to think traveling through space, that he didn't meet one alien, one person out there that made him question whether what he's doing is correct? Yes, an unhealthy INTJ can demonstrate this trait, but the Marvel Cinematic movie takes place over a couple of years. I don't believe Thanos can be unhealthy for that long. A healthy INTJ is not closed-minded. Yes, we're hard-headed, but we're willing to change our stance if the evidence shows that there's a better option and if it doesn't go against another FI value. So if a character is written where the character doesn't question what they're doing and they are always confident in whatever their grand scheme is or their ethics, they're probably not very introspective And that's not very INTJ-like. And that's all for this video, folks. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it, and it will help me grow as a content creator. Stay tuned for the next few videos in the series. They'll be dropping soon. I'll try to get them out as soon as possible. To everyone who donated via Coffee, thank you very much for your donation. I hope you know I'm reinvesting it in the channel. It's going to good use. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.